Previously on whatever you call this show.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today I want to talk about exploration and map making, and more specifically, whether or not a game that you are playing or creating should or should not have a map. If you have a map, at least a player, as they're moving forward, is always exploring new areas and always finding new areas and adding them to the map. But without a map, or temporarily without a map, what you're doing is every time that you go into a new area and don't find a map, that area will remain mysterious and will remain unknown for the most part until you go back to it probably 4 or 5 times. Now, both sides are good. If you are going on the sort of Hollow Knight area where there isn't a map through this area, or at least temporarily there isn't, you have that tenseness and that mysteriousness of that area that is maintained every time you return to that area until you get a map. And although, I can't tell you how to feel, I personally find that in these circumstances, when I go back, I'm like, okay, well, I know that I need to go down, left, down, right in terms of the rooms to get back to where I was. Or at least I think I do. And again, that's the sense of adventure and the sense of danger that I personally really enjoy with games like this. Now, bringing this all together, what this causes for the player in terms of an actual gameplay mechanic is these sort of trips into the unknown. Anytime you have a map that is filling itself out as you go, you are sort of limiting the player from these trips because, again, you're maintaining that constant progress because anytime you go into a new room, it's mapped. Without a map, or with a map that is not revealed until later, you're causing the player to start from a checkpoint, like in Bloodborne, a campfire, and to go from that checkpoint and make these small trips out to accomplish certain deeds. Often, when I would find a new checkpoint in Bloodborne or in the Dark Souls series, I would get to that campfire, be very happy, and then move forward to kind of have a death run. And generally, I do the same thing in Hollow Knight, where I'll just explore a bunch of new areas and run around, ignoring enemies, and just trying to find something that I want to get to legitimately. And these death runs are totally my own thing. I know a lot of people don't do them and just take it very seriously, but I like that initial run because then I go back to the campfire or I die, and from there, I haven't lost any progress, but I know there's something out there that I want to get to. And so I kind of start planning these little trips in my head of I want to go and grab this one item from a box that's behind this one boss that just kicked my butt. Or I want to stop by these 3 places and kill the enemies there for experience, then stop by there and grab something, and then come back. Or I want to go and just get the experience, come back, save, and then go tackle the boss. And all of these are different trips that kind of encourage a player agency within this game, and I think that that is one of the most wonderful things to feel as a player, because you feel like the game world exists, you feel like it's alive, and you can plan your own path through the game, and that's something that makes these games so incredibly non-linear. Now, obviously, a game designer will go and plant these different things to create these trips for you, but at the same time, giving you those options makes it feel a lot more personal and a lot more exciting and adventurous than a game that just tells you, okay, go to this marker on the map. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I want to talk about in this video as we finish the final section, is games that have maps that really do not need them, or games that have map markers that are really going overboard. And the biggest example that I can find of this has to do with World of Warcraft, and this is going to be super contentious, and I'm actually not going to conclude as to whether or not it should or should not have a map, but obviously World of Warcraft needs an overworld map. It needs a zone map too. But then we get into the classic versus modern WoW, where in classic WoW, you would have to read every quest you got, and the quest would say, go northwest to find this cave to kill the giant golem inside of it, or to kill the ogres in their encampment to the southeast, or to steal something from the horde encampment to the northeast. And they would just give you pretty vague directions to look for this, and that would encourage the player to pay attention to the game, and to also kind of keep an eye out for all of the art around them that was created by the art team. It makes you more present in the game, and it can be very exciting. It can also be very frustrating, and I think that that's one reason why, for a lot of players, they prefer the waypoint system. And it's a system used in a lot of different RPGs. I know that, what was it? It was like Amalar Reckoning or Days of Reckoning. I'll put the game up here. But there was this RPG that came out around the same time that Skyrim did, and it was a fantastic RPG. I honestly think the combat in this was like 10 times more fun than Skyrim, but Skyrim did way better at world building. But this RPG had waypoints everywhere. You always knew exactly where to go, and it told you exactly what to do once you got there, and so that sense of exploration was completely lost within the main story. The exploration in that sense came with the side quests, but at the same time, there were a lot of times where I was just mindlessly walking from place to place because I knew where I had to go, and there was no reason to be paying attention to the world around me. And that has a really, really big issue with immersion, and it really just crushes that immediately when you're just like, okay, well, it's that direction, so I guess I'll hold up on the control stick and check my phone until I get to that destination. Now, it is up to the player to pay attention to things that they want to pay attention to, but when the player has less to do from point A to point B, you can't expect them to pay much attention in the interim. And this is something that happens in modern World of Warcraft because, as with MLR, whatever Days of Reckoning it's called, really wish I had actually looked up the name before filming, but I'm filming the audio on my phone, so I can't really check that right now. But this game does a great job of showing what not to do, because in World of Warcraft, now that there is waypoints in every single area, doing daily quests or doing world quests is essentially going on the map saying, this is where I need to go to kill 10 of these things, and going there and doing it and just being done. Now, there is some satisfaction that comes with that. I actually really appreciate world quests because they bring you to different places and kind of say, hey, explore around here to do this one thing. But I also think you lose so much of a sense of immersion and adventure by doing this and by over-mapping areas. And that's something that is really important to look at when you're thinking of a game for yourself. In most cases, I think that you don't need a map, but when it comes to adventure games, when it comes to worlds that are huge and that are very non-linear, you do need some sort of map. But you need to be careful what you put on that map, because in cases like World of Warcraft and in cases like the Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, I feel like I finally got the name for that, and often in other games that are very small and don't really need a map to begin with, overmapping can really ruin a sense of adventure. And so finally, let's talk about games that just absolutely do not need maps. And I'm going to start off with the king of why did they put a map in this, and that is Mario Odyssey. I love the maps in the levels, but the fact that there is a world map between the levels has frustrated me to no end. All of these worlds are so incredibly immersive, yet between them, all you're doing is flying around a globe, and that is so unsatisfying and boring, and really ruins the continuity of the world. It makes it feel like the 2D Mario games, where every single separate world had no connection at all whatsoever, and were really just there to show you that one was a sand world and one was a water world. But with this world map in Odyssey, I think it was just such a missed opportunity to create a hub world that could have gone to all of these worlds that really showed you that they are connected and that it is a continuous world between everything, between New Donk City and Princess Peach's castle. In general, for any sort of adventure game, you are going to need some sort of map. It's just important to pay attention to the things that you need within your map, and to pay attention to maintaining that sense of exploration throughout the entire world. From a game designer perspective, this means going for the minimum route first, and adding things as you playtest it for players that do get particularly frustrated. I won't say start off with no map, because I think for most games, you will know whether or not it needs a map, and there are a number of examples out there of mainstream games that really, really need maps that don't have them. I'm talking to you like early Metroid games. I mean, even the early Legend of Zelda games had a map, and it was bad, but at least they had one. And then there are examples of bad maps, like the one in Secret of Mana, which is not accessible until after, like, the, 7th dungeon, 10th dungeon? What's the point of it at that point? Like, I was just ready to play the whole game without a map and enjoy the gameplay anyways, but there are a number of games that don't do a great job of this, and so look through the games that you have played. Look at the map specifically, and find which parts of them have really affected the sense of adventure that a game gives you. All in all, the important thing to consider when you're looking at whether or not a game needs a map is whether or not that map interferes or adds to a sense of exploration. I think that for me, one of my favorite ways it's ever been done was Hollow Knight, but a lot of people didn't like that version. A lot of people prefer the sense of exploration that comes with every single new room meaning something to you. And maybe that's where you stand, or maybe you stand on the sort of vague map side, where there's a map that shows you all of the different locations, like the different temples and caves you need to visit, but doesn't really say exactly where they are, and more of a topographical map than an actual, well, this is the road to get to this place, this is the road to get to this place, this room's connected to this room, this room's connected to this room. Something in between that and a very vague map that you might see on perhaps a treasure hunting episode of your favorite cartoon. Regardless, let me know if you have good examples of any games that are lacking maps that need them, or the other way around. And more specifically, I'm interested to hear if anybody has any adventure games or any sort of Metroidvania games that do a different sort of mapping system than I talked about in this video, because I feel like I covered a lot of them, from world maps to submaps to procedurally generated maps, which I suppose could be a whole nother topic, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Feel free to subscribe and like the video if you like it, but regardless, thank you so much for watching today's video. Hope you're all doing well, and keep adventuring, everybody. I know it's a really weird time, and I say this at the end of every video, but adventures in video games are one of the biggest things that helps me escape, and I'm sure that a lot of people out there feel the same way, so keep on those adventures. They're keeping me sane, so I hope they are keeping you sane. And regardless, have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you guys in the next video, but for right now, goodbye, everybody.